transformational accounts represent those accounts that change you, change your business, and change the trajectory of your growth. So if you look at your own capabilities and the kinds of things that your business does, sometimes by having a large account, an account that is 3 to 5% of your annual revenue or your annual book of business, you have to step up your game to be ready to handle that account. And it's a good thing. It positions you for additional growth later on in your business career or in the life cycle of your own company. By having those kinds of transformational accounts, you put yourself in a great position to get the next one and the next one and the next one. But how do you land those transformational accounts? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it is a process and it's a system. We won't go through every element of the process or the system today, but I want to focus on just one idea. And I'd like to remind everyone, if you have a question as we're going through our conversation, I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes and then leave some time for us to have those questions. And when those questions come through, I'll pull those in and make certain that we answer those, or as many of them as we can today. So back to the transformational account. I hope you've got some place to take some notes. The first question is on that size. What is the size of a transformational account? Well, typically a transformational account is an account that is 10 to 20 times the size of your average account, or it is 3 to 5% or greater of your annual revenue. And by landing those accounts, not just their size and their scale and scope, but the requirements that they have, your business changes. So the one idea I want to talk about today is to sell transformational accounts, you need an executive sponsor. Now, what's an executive sponsor? Well, first, understand executives in and of themselves are hired into organizations to solve problems. And candidly, they've built their resumes on what problems they've solved. And so an executive sponsor is a person who has a significant business problem and that they're at a position in their organization that they have decision-making authority, they have a business initiative that lines up to, and they have some economic responsibility, the check signing capability, to really make change happen. Now, understand in transformational accounts, executive sponsors are not the only people who will be involved from your prospect, but they are important, and to be successful, you're going to have to focus on that executive sponsor. Now, I will tell you, to be successful, those executive sponsors, you have to talk to them in their language. If you don't talk to them about their problems in their language, two bad things are really happening. One is you're forcing that executive sponsor to do the translation of whatever your services and benefits and products and quality and things like that, what they bring to his company. You're actually asking him or her to do that translation in their own head and then relate it to the real business problems that they have. And the second thing is if you're talking about your products and your qualities and services and prices, you're really not talking about what their problems are. You're just talking about yourself. And if you're talking about yourself, they will quickly move you down in the organization to someone else for you to speak with. That means being delegated down. That means you're one step away from the person who has the check signing authority. You're one step away from the person who has the actual performance authority. You're one step away from the kind of sponsorship it'll take to get the deal all the way through the organization. So I'm going to spend my time with you right now talking about the language of big sales transformational accounts. And the first piece of that is to understand the difference between what you possibly have been selling, which I call the iron triangle, versus business solutions. Now, what's the iron triangle? Well, the iron triangle we were probably all taught is product, service, and price. If you showed that as a triangle, you would see those three pieces. And typically when salespeople go out into the marketplace and they're selling to managers, supervisors, or end users, they are speaking about why their product, their service, or their price is incrementally better than their competitors in the marketplace. What's the trap with that? Well, that means that you are already in some sort of almost an Excel spreadsheet of comparison of what it is that your product, service, and prices do and compared to someone else. You're in a feature benefit trap. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you can fit what you offer to an organization into an Excel spreadsheet, if you can fit it into a comparative model like I've just described, you've already been moved down into a managerial level. And that's a selection of vendor process, not a business solution sales process. Vendor selection process, honestly, you will probably only get a small piece of the business when you're selling in that process. You need to move up the food chain to directors, vice presidents, presidents, and owners and CXOs. And to do that, you have to solve big problems for big people. And that's really the key message of the day. How can you provide a big solution to a big problem for a big person inside of a big company? And when you do that, and you do it effectively, you're going to be landing those transformational accounts. Now, I told you what the language was of small sales, right? The language of small sales is product, service, and price. The language of transformational accounts is money, time, and risk. And just so that we're clear on this, money is not about price. Time is not about service. And quality is not, and product are not about risk. We're talking about different language here, and you need to work through that different language if you're going to have an opportunity to land big transformational accounts. So you're really moving the lens of the conversation from talking about you to talking about them. How do we do that? Well, let me give you a couple of key examples to that and how to make that work. The first key example to that is a company that was out there and was selling ice cream. One of our clients was selling ice cream into grocery stores. And the way that they had always sold that ice cream in the past, which was kind of funny, of course, is that they would take in samples of ice cream. Well, if you're running Kroger or Sam's Club or Walmart, you probably, as a senior executive inside of those organizations, don't get up in the morning and say to yourself, oh my gosh, I've got to get to work. We have an ice cream flavor problem. They didn't have an ice cream flavor problem. But they were pitching from a product level, price level, and service level, and they kept getting pushed down further and further into the organization to frontline supervisors and managers who wanted to set up little tasting booths to taste their ice cream. That's no way to move gallons of ice cream or truckloads of ice cream. That's a way to move pints of ice cream. It's very expensive. What's a better way to do that? Well, the message that we started to work through with them is, what is the senior executive's problem inside of those large grocers? Well, the problem that they had was margin dollars per square foot. It's interesting, in the last 20 years, grocers have no longer been grocers. They're now realtors. They really are looking at all the revenue that comes into their stores based upon how many dollars per square foot are we generating and how much margin dollars are we generating per square foot. Because of that, the language of the discussion had to move from the flavor of the ice cream, how cold it was, what its texture was, how soon it would come in, and what their price per pint was. Rather, they had to come in and say, okay, look, when you put our ice cream into your facilities, the velocity with which pints moves off per square foot is at this rate. And the reason it moves at that rate is because of the way that we market and the way we brand and the way that we handle our approach to the marketplace in general, and how we present our ice cream inside of your facilities. And so that gives you an idea of velocity. In addition, we're higher priced. We're 50% higher per pint than anyone else, but we still sell an enormous amount of volume. But because of that, now your margin dollars per square foot are going to go up. And finally, the last piece on that, besides just velocity and margin, was the idea of recovery time. In the retail space, they know that if I replace one product with another product, there's going to be a small period of time in which sales will drop and then pick up again. To ignore that fact is to look pretty much unsophisticated in your marketplace. So they had to recognize it and say, our recovery time, the last guy that had that square foot of ice cream cabinet, well, our sales in that space will drop for 2 weeks, then they'll increase back to the same level, and by 6 weeks from now, our velocity will be higher. Now, it's interesting. When you move that conversation, you think you're selling ice cream, but the people inside of your transformational accounts do not have flavor problems. They have completely different language problems, and the ways that I just described that are in the terms of time, money, and risk. Let me give you another example. In the IT services space, one of the folks that we worked with is a programming company. They do programming on one of those on a platform basis, like a Documentum or an SAP or an enterprise resource planning. And the interesting thing is that once a company is certified on one of those platforms, they go out in the marketplace and they hang their shingle out and say, we're certified. And because they're certified, the quality of the programmers is supposed to be about the same. And because of that, the rate to be charged is about the same. And quickly, that high-tech space is commoditized down to what? Available capacity, and what's the price? Our client didn't want to be trapped into available capacity and price and be commoditized. They wanted to be a value seller, and they wanted to distinguish themselves in the marketplace. So their message changed. They went out to the prospects and they said, look, if you've got a year to implement your platform transformation work that you're doing inside of your company, great. You can use any certified company who's been certified in the same tools that we've been certified in. Now, if you want to get that same project completed in 6 months, there are 5 companies who can do this out in the marketplace. And we'll give you the list of all 5 of them. But if you need to get this project completed in 90 days, you're stuck. We're it. We're the 90-day company, and we accomplish those projects inside of 90 days. By moving the conversation from their service, their price, and the quality of their output, by moving it off of that iron triangle and moving it into what the business problem is, which is in this case, they put it out there as the problem was time. They let their client translate that into money and risk issues. They put themselves in a very, very strong position to represent themselves as differentiated in a highly commoditized marketplace. So when you're looking at your own business, the exercise that I would encourage you to do is to say, all right, let me take a look at the lens from my client's space. What I'm going to do, and this is what I want you to do as an assignment to take home, is to say, I'm going to answer this question. Companies hire my company when they want to solve one or more of the following 3 business problems. And then I want you to use the language of time, money, and risk. Now, it sounds easy, but I want to add one little caveat to that same assignment. And the caveat's simple. You can't use any of the language of your product or your service. So take that language out. And now you have to talk about what is the value you bring out of time, money, and risk. Let me give you an example of that. I'll use my own business. By the way, you can get lots of information about what we do and how we do it, as well as all sorts of blogs and newsletters and videos that are all free at huntbigsales.com. And if you go to huntbigsales.com and register, I'll send you my newsletters and all sorts of information about that. But my business is a professional services company, and companies hire me, and let me tell you why. Companies hire me when they want to solve one or more of the following 3 business problems. Either first, they want to double their double. They want to double the speed with which they double the size of their company. Or they want to double the size of their average sale. Or they want to help being navigated through the biggest sale in the history of their company by someone who's literally landed hundreds of those sizes of deals. Now I want you to listen to the language I just used. I said double your double the speed with which you double the size of your company, or double the size of your average sale, or navigate through your biggest deal ever. Now, what language did you not hear? Well, you didn't hear the language of that I do sales training, sales coaching, sales process development, that we do deal coaching, that I write books, that I do keynote speeches, that we do workshops, seminars, or webinars. None of that language was in there. Why? Because all of that is iron triangle language. It's all about what my products are, what my services are, and it's all talking to them about what I do. Now, if I'm talking to a president or an owner of a business and I walk in and I say, "Hi, I'm a sales trainer," how long do you think I'm in their office? Not very. They're going to push me right into someone else, either human resources or the training department or the vice president of sales and marketing, because those people have a sales training problem. But the president or the owner of the company, he doesn't have or she doesn't have a sales training problem. They have a double your double problem. And when I talk about doubling your double, or doubling the size of your average sale, or navigating you through your biggest sale ever, I stay in that executive sponsor's office rather than being moved off to someone else. So I want you to do this exact same exercise for yourself. Write down, companies hire my company when they want to solve one or more of the following 3 business problems, and answer the question with time, money, and risk.